Good evening. I would like to call the November 9th, 2015 City Council meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Greenwood?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Here.
Mrs. Seeger-Lawson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schweller?
Here.
Mayor Baird?
Here. Formal approval of the work session and City Council meeting minutes of October 26, 2015. Does any member on council have any additions to the regular City Council meeting minutes of our last meeting?
I had none, Mayor.
None,
Mayor.
Seeing none, the minutes are approved as written. Special guest special announcements. Tonight, we would like to recognize some of our employees this evening. Employees are one of our most valuable assets, and we have some anniversaries today. So I am going to call each person up, and we'll have a couple gift items up here. And I'd like to thank all of them for all their service to the city. Does council have anything they would like to add before we get started?
Always appreciate great service and great employees.
And the first one on this list is actually the lowest, 10 years, which you would think for a person with 10 years of service, there'd probably be someone at least with 5. So I would like to start with Nathan Peaster. Nathan? Nathan is a volunteer fireman with our fire department. And my next door neighbor across the street.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Next, Vince Vinskoy, currently serving as a patrol officer in the police department. His 10 years of service includes time as a part-time patrol officer. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Vince.
Now we move up. 15 years. Bev Daughtery currently serves as secretary in the service department. Her 15 years of service includes time as a part-time custodian. So thank you very much, Bev.
She's not here.
She's not here? Oh. Next, 20 years. Anthony Bizzaro currently serves as a captain in the fire department. His 20 years of service includes time as a volunteer and a part-time firefighter. Thank you. Now we move up 25 years. Linda Stokes Crow currently serves as a volunteer EMS provider in the fire department. Her 25 years of service includes time as a part-time firefighter. Linda currently serves on the active duty in the United States Air Force. Thank you very much for your service. I once again would like to thank all of our employees, especially the ones having their anniversaries today. It really does make the city a better place, and the customer service and that our citizens get is great. So thank you all very much. That is all I have for special guests and announcements this evening. Next, we have introduction of ordinances. Ordinance number 2015-13. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 2015-13, an ordinance adopting the revised City of Bellbrook Personnel Manual. Whereas the City of Bellbrook periodically reviews its personnel policies and procedures, and whereas the city has made revisions to the personnel manual that incorporates these policies and procedures, and whereas the city desires to adopt the revised personnel manual. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains, Section 1, that the revised personnel manual attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, setting forth personnel policies and procedures for employees of the City of Bellbrook, is hereby adopted. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect January 1st, 2016.
Yes, this is just the introduction of this ordinance. I'll have a full presentation at the public hearing at the next time. I would like to make one note. In the actual attachment of the personnel manual on page 17, there are a couple additional corrections that I made. If you had a copy at your desk, I made it on there. It'll show up in the final version, but we tried to clean up some of the references to the 24, 48-hour shift because that is now covered by a union contract. So we tried to eliminate some of those, and we had missed one in the original go-through. So there's a couple other minor corrections that you'll see when we review this at the next meeting.
So this is an introduction this evening. Does any other member on council have any questions?
None, Mayor.
Mayor.
May I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 2015-13?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 2015-13.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mr. Schweller.
Yes.
Mayor Baird.
Yes. Next, we have one resolution this evening, Resolution 2015-GG. Mr. Greenwood.
Yes, Mayor. Resolution number 215-GG, a resolution declaring specific equipment no longer needed by the city of Bellbrook as surplus property and authorizing the city manager to dispose of said surplus property. Whereas the city of Bellbrook desires to maintain adequate equipment to be used by its personnel, and whereas equipment no longer needed for use by city personnel may be declared as surplus property per Chapter 230 of the Bellbrook Municipal Code. Now, therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the following equipment is hereby declared as surplus property. It's a 2004 Medic Ford E50 XL McCoy Miller, serial number 1FDXE45P74HA96628. Section 2, that the city manager is hereby authorized and directed to dispose of said property in accordance with Chapter 230 of the Bellbrook Municipal Code. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
Yes, as council knows, earlier this year we ordered a new medic. That medic has been delivered recently. This will take one of our 3 existing medics out of service, and we'll auction that online using govdeals.com. This is actually not the oldest medic we have, but it is the medic that we've had the most issues with. So we have a 2000 model that will become the reserve medic, and then we'll have the 2 newer medics be the frontline medics. So with approval, we'll go ahead and put this online and get it auctioned off.
Does anyone have any questions regarding Resolution 2015-GG?
Madam Mayor.
May I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2015-GG?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 215-GG.
May I have a second?
Second it.
Roll call.
A motion by Mr. Greenwood to adopt Resolution 2015-GG, a resolution declaring specific equipment no longer needed by the city of Bellbrook as surplus property and authorizing the city manager to dispose of said surplus property. Seconded by Mrs. Seeger Lawson. Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mr. Schweller.
Yes.
Mayor Baird.
Yes. That is all we have for introduction of ordinances and resolutions this evening. Next, we have city manager's report.
Yes, just a couple items to report. The Vemco Firebird Stormwater Project is getting closer to completion. The intersection was closed virtually all of last week. They did open it late Friday afternoon, and it was open again. It's still open today. They may have to close it temporarily at times to finish the work, but the pipe's installed almost all the way back to where the new head wall is going to go. So they are scheduled to have the paving done this Friday. They're going to mill down that whole intersection and have the paving done. So assuming the weather is works out, they'll be able to get that done, and we'll have most of that project done here probably by next week is when that project will be done. So that'll be good to be complete with that. I appreciate the patience the residents have had over in that area. There's a couple of homeowners that have been directly affected, but they've been great. I've talked with a couple of them, and they've been very patient, and they understand. But we're trying to get this done, and ultimately it will help them and the stormwater issues that they've had. But in the meantime, it's been a rough few weeks there. So another project, the LED lighting project. If you notice in this room, all our lights here have been replaced with LED lights. They've replaced all the lights in the administration building. They've done all our exterior lights. Now they're working on our other facilities. They still probably got a couple more weeks to go to get that done, but it's definitely an improvement that you can certainly tell the difference. So we enjoy the new lighting. As for the employees, I want to add to what the mayor said. I appreciate the years of service they put in. As you can see, every year we seem to have people that have 20, 25 years, and I think that says a lot too about the city of Bellbrook and the place it is to work, and that people are willing to stay here for a long time. So I want to add my appreciation to that. Veterans Day is Wednesday, so the offices are closed on Wednesday to observe that holiday. Our next council meeting is on November 23rd, 7 p.m. We'll again have another budget work session, our final budget work session at 5:30 that evening to finish up our discussions about the 2016 and beyond budget. So that is all I have this evening.
That is all. Thank you very much. Any questions for our city manager this evening? Seeing none, committee reports. Service.
None tonight, Mayor.
Safety.
I thought I was service.
No, wait a minute, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I was
You
like,
got,
wait,
he said so quick. You guys, okay. Let's try this again. Service.
I was just gonna say that, I just want to remind people not to rake their leaves into the street, because that blocks up the storm sewers. So you're not supposed to do that. Preferable method to get rid of leaves is to mulch them up, and then if not, you can put them out with the trash, right?
You can bag them, or you
Bag
can
'em,
pay,
okay.
there's contractors that'll come. You can rake them to the, not in the street, but next to the street, and somebody will come and take care of them.
Contractor,
Contractor
Yeah,
will come
when I
and
first
take.
moved to Bellbrook, I saw my neighbor raking hers into the street, so I did the same thing, and then someone said, no, you can't do that. So
Right.
I just want to remind people not to do that.
Yep.
Mulch them up into your grass.
Run them over with a lawnmower about 10 times. City,
Never on
finance.
safety.
Okay.
I do have a
Sorry.
comment.
Okay. Back to,
Sorry for messing it up, but the only thing I'd like to, the reports we get from the police department, there's still a lot of phone scams going on. Probably never will end, but, just make a note, just be careful. A lot of people calling up, trying to trick you in and out of your money, so just be careful. Thanks. That's all I got.
okay, so we got service and safety. Okay. Finance and audit this evening. Mr. Schrawler.
Mayor, nothing to report tonight.
Community affairs.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Old business. Does anyone on council have any old business? I see no one shaking their head. Okay. We do have a piece of new business this evening. Village Review Board appeal demolition of 79 West Franklin Street. Mr. Schlaghead, would you like to start?
Yeah, I've got a couple items here just to sort of give you a recap of how we got to where we are. So this is a case, it's the appeal of a decision made by the Village Review Board regarding the demolition of 79 West Franklin Street. Just to give you a timeline, at the end of July, we received an application from the property owner requesting to demolish the existing structure. One of the stated reasons was that remodeling was not economically feasible. Included with this application was a worksheet for demolition request, a VRB 2 form was included, and I'll go over that here in a minute. The Village Review Board held a public hearing on August 31st. At that point, the matter was tabled pending additional information from owner regarding his intentions for the property. Next, on September 1st, the city staff sent a memo to the Village Review Board about the additional information, or that that information was not really pertinent about the intentions of the property to the request for the demolition. We rescheduled a public hearing, or scheduled the second public hearing on September 30th. There was a motion to approve the request for demolition. There were 2 votes in favor of that motion. There were 2 votes against that. Because there was not a majority, that motion therefore failed. On October 16th, we received an appeal of the decision from the property owner. That appeal obviously comes to City Council. City Council has, according to Article 14.17, the City Council may reverse, affirm, or modify the action of the Village Review Board by a simple majority vote of the entire council. So, council has all that information. They have the minutes from the meetings, they have the applications, they have some of the supporting documentation. One of the things that I wanted to highlight was this, I mentioned the worksheet for demolition request. This is a form that was implemented when the standards for the old village were put into place. I don't even know when that was, probably back in the 90s is when that was, in the early 90s. And this was sort of a way to determine the value of the property and what it could generate. So there's a couple things that are asked for in this. The first is, what is the current building value? That building value, according to the Greene County Auditor, is $47,770. But I will say that the property was purchased last year for $30,000. So the $47,770 is only the value of the building, according to the auditor. There's also $22,000 is the value of the land, but the whole property was only purchased for $30,000 last year. The cost of repairs, and this documentation is in there. The quote is in there. It could range from $65,000 to $105,000 is the cost of repairs, and the estimated annual lease payments if the building was repaired and was able to be leased out. There was an appraiser that appraised that it could rent for $8,400 per year if it was repaired. So there is a formula that's part of this form that says, okay, you have to take, for the gross investment return, you take the $8,400 annual lease and divide it by the total cost, the value of the building plus the cost of repairs. I use the low end of the cost of repairs. Obviously, it could be much more than that. And if that percent is less than 10%, then it's not feasible, according to this formula, to remodel this building and put it back into use. So that just gives sort of a summary of that. I want to also share with you some photos of the building. They don't, some of them show up better than others, so as I go through these, so that's one of the exteriors, that's the other exterior. This is an interior you can't really see, but there's some additional interior pictures of the building and the current condition of the building. And then I have a few more here. I think that's the porch that's off the eastern side there of the structure. So this just gives you a sense of the current state of the building. So with that, this is not technically a public hearing, it's just an appeal, but I think, I know the property owner is in attendance and would probably like to say something about their request for demolition, and there may be other people in the audience. I think we can conduct it like a public hearing, but it's not technically a public hearing.
Public hearing, okay. We will do that then. We can start. I will let other people who want to get up and speak. Our normal policy or rules of that is you'll have 5 minutes, give your name, address. If we have questions and go on, then of course, you can stay up here longer than that. With that, I'm not sure who the property owner is. If I would invite you to come up, I probably have your name in here, sir. I apologize.
Mr. Mayor, would it be helpful to talk about, at least in the front end, that we're here to discuss the demolition, not necessarily what's going to happen after demolition, or is that part and parcel to tonight's hearing?
That is correct. This decision was on whether the building could be demolished or not. That was what was being discussed. And I know in some of there's obviously always a discussion about what's going to happen after, but really the decision is whether or not this building can be demolished.
And then afterwards, it's subject to Article 14.
It is subject to all the regulations within the old village guidelines as to what can go back in there. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, and folks in the audience. I'm Paul Gendrian, owner of the property that you just showed up there at 79 West Franklin Street. The house is a mess. It's bad as it might look on the outside. It's even worse on the inside, as some of those pictures depicted. I'm here tonight to request your approval to demolish the property at 79 West Franklin Street as it we mentioned that it did go in front of the Village Review Board, edited a 2-2 tie. So when I purchased the property, it was headed into a tax foreclosure. This is a little bit of history, but no real estate taxes have been paid in several years. No City of Bellbrook water bills have been paid. Greene County sewer, the water had been shut off. There was about $12,000 in liens. Most of them were public utility liens. There were a few small personal liens. And the folks that had purchased the property that I purchased from the estate in 1954, and it was a two-family unit at one time. I don't know when two families last lived there, but the family that purchased it in 1954, there were 6 children that grew up there, mother and father and 6 children, so, 8 of them all together. And from what I've been told, not much was spent on maintenance over the years because the family's income really wasn't too high. The father passed away, then the mother took sick, and one of the daughters came up and lived with her for 2 or 3 years, I guess, with her youngest son. And she worked at Dots, and it took about everything she had just to put food on the table. And the only utility that was functional was the electric. So they kept warm in the winter with space heaters. I mean, if you can imagine that, they kind of roughed it. Anyway, so after I bought the property, I have attempted to clean up the backyard as best I could. I mean, I knew I was going to probably have to go in front of the Village Review Board to discuss my intentions. So I've cut down several dead trees. We cleaned up a bunch of honeysuckle. We planted some grass. We cleaned up a lot of other trash. And frankly, I don't know if anyone here has been by the property, but the backyard does look fairly nice.
It does.
And I would like to have permission to tear down the front of the property, and it's my intention to make that look just as nice as the back. As far as what I intend on doing, it was a two-family, and after it's torn down, if I can get permission to tear it down, I would like to build a two-family. And of course, we'll have a different configuration in the existing building. It will not be as wide. It'll be narrower, and it'll extend a little farther back. Two-bedroom apartments with a garage in the middle. I would like to keep the front entrance in place where it is, so that instead of entering the property off of West Franklin, you enter it from where you do now on the side. So I think we can salvage, out of everything that's there, I think we can salvage the concrete work that is the porch. I've always liked that porch, and a little sidewalk leading from the main sidewalk up to it. Beside being an eyesore, which I think everyone would agree, there's also a certain amount of risk. There's a hazard there. I mean, it's vacant now, but if we have another storm like we did several years ago, a windstorm, place could blow down. It could get hit by lightning. Some kids could decide they were going to have a party there, bust in, even though the building is secure. It wouldn't take too much to knock down a door, get in through a window, have a party, and there's no lights on or anything. Someone could get injured. So it's a hazard. There's a risk. I believe the city would be better off without it there. And without being redundant and covering anything that has previously been covered, I would appreciate your consideration. You all have a packet in front of you, as I understand, so you've read through just about everything that's been discussed at the previous meetings. No point in me continuing on. I would appreciate your consideration of the matter. I thank you for your time, and I'm hoping for a majority vote that would allow me to tear it down. Thank you.
Council, does anyone have any direct questions?
That lot is relatively deep, is it not? I mean, I walked the property yesterday. The building is very much to the front, and the lot is rather deep in the back. It goes back to that street, correct?
Yeah, it goes back to the alley. It's 166 feet deep by 65 or 66 feet wide.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
plenty of room to build what I want
That's
to
what I
build.
thought,
And
yes.
still have nice landscaping in back.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question. Assuming that the permit is issued and the house is demolished, I know there'll be a period of time in which, you'll be able to have to get plans and approval and everything else. What will you do with the lot after the property after the house is gone? Will it be cleaned up and planted and,
Well,
or will it be a pile of dirt with?
no, I'll try to make it look as nice as possible. My goal is, if it's approved tonight, that we want to start to work on what the new building would look like, and then meet with the Village Review Board. I really don't want to have a lot of overlap between the time it comes down and we start to build. And, if we can come to agreement on what the new building would look like and get approval to go ahead with that, then I would schedule the demolition, and as soon as it's down, we'd fill in, to the extent it needed to be filled in and so on, and then we would start work on the new structure. So, it wouldn't be, it's not my intent to have a vacant lot sitting there for 6 months or a year.
Is there a basement under it?
Not what you would consider a basement. I think there's a hole. I've never gotten down. I've been told there's some sort of a hole underneath. I've never had the desire to crawl under there
crawl
and,
in.
and take a look. On the side there is something where it used to be a coal chute years ago. There's a couple doors, and that's another thing. The property sits right on the alley, and I'm surprised no one has ever hit it in all these years. It's a tribute to Bellbrook drivers. The property's never been clobbered, considering garbage trucks go through there and snow plows and other big vehicles. So, it needs to sit farther back, probably 20 feet or so. I don't have the exact dimensions, away from the alley, to give everybody a little more room.
It actually, I viewed the property inside, it actually has a a root cellar back.
Yeah,
where they
a
used to
lot
have
of the houses around here
Made
have
out
them.
of rocks.
Some people dug them out, some people didn't.
Yeah. I think they had a water meter down there at one time.
Probably.
Yeah.
I walked around it myself today and looked at it, and it's pretty bad.
It is. It's ugly. It's an ugly house, both on the inside and the outside.
I saw homes in the Oregon district that were as bad or worse, but that's a wholly different environment
Yes,
down there.
yes.
Any other questions on council?
What's your time frame if you get a permission? How long before you tear it down? And
Well, I'm probably going to let that go until spring, given that this is November, and the last time I talked to the demolition firm that I probably intend to use, he said about 2 months. They were running about 2 months behind. I called them the other day. They're not that far behind now, but I think it'd be better to wait until the spring, probably March, April, something like that, and then if we can have a meeting or two with the Village Review Board after the first of the year and go over our plans and hopefully gain approval, then everything should fall in place.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see if anyone else has any comments or remarks. Come on up, please. Say your name and your address and where you live, and you have 5 minutes.
Sounds good. My name is Shane Russell, 3937 Liam Court. This is actually my first meeting I've ever been to, so it's kind of interesting. I know nothing about the property and such. My just question is if, it sounds from how it's been presented pretty cut and dry. It's an old derelict property that's ugly. So my only question is, if there was a previous vote and it went 2-2, what was some of the arguments from the other side that 2 people would actually vote against this proposal? Is there historical value to the building? Is there, I was just interested in that.
We have a whole lot of stuff you can read. Mark or Elaine?
Yeah, Eileen might have, she attended both those, but obviously it's an old building. It was built in 1850, so that's one of the predominant things is the age of the building, not necessarily, I don't think in our research we found any real historical significance to it. There wasn't anyone, Stephen Bell didn't live there or anything like that, but it was really just, it's the age of the building, and I think the one of the sentiments is, once you demolish a building of that age, obviously it's not coming back. But I think the other side of that is you can see from the pictures that this building is well on its way to being demolished on its own without somebody coming in and doing anything. So we do have some of the minutes and some of the from both of those hearings. If you'd like to take a look at those, we can certainly get you those, and you can take a look at those.
It seemed to me, that without reading it all again, because I read it over the weekend, I think, but it seemed like this may not be the specific reason, but there were a lot of questions on what's going to be there, which is really not what we're here to do tonight. But it did seem like there were some questions, and Eileen can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like there was concerns on what's going to be put up back there, which would really be up to the whole village review board and go through this whole process again if that doesn't work. But that was sort of the gist I got from reading everything. Was that the reason they were turning it down, I can't speak for them, but this reading was that we really didn't know what was going to go in there for sure. Nor do we.
Have you had a chance to talk to like Steve Berryhill or some of the kind of historians in the area just to see if there was any,
But,
We keep pointing it.
there's a gentleman that's on the board that's here that maybe can speak to some of that, or if you want to come up, you can.
I'm done with all my questions.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
thank
that's
you.
fine.
Brady Harding, 2109 South Bellevue. I am on the Old Village Review Board. I am an architect here locally as well. I'm not really for or against the demolition of it. My biggest concern was the fact that we don't know enough about it. I had reached out to Mr. Berryhill, and he was in the process of having done some of the research. We know that and he's had some health problems, and he had to stop in the middle of this. We do know that it was platted in 1835. It was the second phase of Stephen Bell's platting in downtown. We know there was a modification to the building in 1850, so it's older than 165 years old. He had not been able to go through all of his documentation yet to find out what it actually was. And that's been my biggest concern, is once it's gone, it's gone. And if you look at the building right now, it has the house 71, I think it is, West Franklin, to the left of it as you're facing, is sort of the sister building or structure to this. They were sort of mirrored images sitting right on the curb. 71 is absolutely beautiful. They've done a very nice job restoring it. It's been brought back, very well done. And I'm not going to argue there's a lot of work that has to be done to it. I would just love to know more about what the actual final history was of it before it's gone, because there's no undo command on this. Once it's gone, it's gone. So that's basically all I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone?
Hi, my name is Faye Pig. I live next door to this house. I would like to see it torn down because it's an eyesore to me, it's an eyesore to the village, and I would like to see something that looks nice next door, because I can go out and work in my yard and do things to make my place look good, but it can't look good because of the trash over there and the dumpy-looking house. So I would like to see it go. And he has cleaned it up a lot. And he wants to do the right thing. He wants to put the right stuff there for the neighbors. He has asked us what we would like, and if we would approve of what he was doing, and he has kept us informed of what he wants to do. I have no objections to what he wants, but I would like to have it torn down.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm a little nervous, so if my voice
That's
shakes,
okay.
I'm sorry. Amy Wickstrom, 54 Brookwood Drive. I am on the Village Review Board. I made some notes. So he said that this house is a hazard. Any empty house can have kids come in, and the empty house could be hit by a tornado and fall down. We're very proud. I'm very proud. I've lived in the city all my life. And I'm very proud of the Old Village, and that's why I'm on the Old Village Review. If we allow people to come in and buy buildings and assume they're gonna just tear them down, it's an old building. He knew it was an old building. This is a village. And you need to be willing to pay to keep it the old village. Otherwise, it's gonna become the new village. Eventually, every building in this city is gonna need rehab. So when it becomes needing to be rehabbed, oh, well, it's gonna cost $100,000 to tear it down and to build a new building, or $100,000 to rehab it, isn't it worth it to keep our old village, the old village, and it's a wash in the money? I don't think that we should allow him to tear it down. It's a part of our old village. That's why we're called the Old Village. We're not the new Oakwood or the new Bellbrook. We're not, sorry. I just feel that if you buy a property in the Old Village of Bellbrook, a historical house, an old house, you should not go into it with the intentions of tearing it down and building a new building that does not look historical, that does not feel historical, that does not mimic our city that we all love, we all should love. That's why we should all be on these boards, because we love the way the city is. Or it's gonna be a whole other city, and it's not gonna be what we love. That's all I have to say. The money side that he showed, I understand the 10% or whatever. But that 3% to me is worth the difference, is worth rehabbing it and keeping our city the way it is, the way we want it to be. Not for profit. I understand that's the way the world works. Profit. But we need more people that the way the world works is in your heart, in your mind, in your conscience. And I voted no. And when it failed, I was happy. I said, it's not gonna be on my conscience. So if you guys allow it to be demolished, it'll be on your conscience and whatever. And money, money, money. Let's think about the city and what it means to us and what we want it to look like. In 10 years, all these buildings could go up for sale. Nobody wants to spend the money to rehab them. So down they go and up goes PetSmart. Not PetSmart, but you know, more buildings that are just brick buildings, apartment buildings that have nothing to do with how we want Bellbrook to look. Thank you. You have any questions?
Council?
Thank you.
Nope. Thank you very much. Let's see if there's anyone else who, I'll let you get back up. Does anyone else want to get up? And then I'll.
My name is Roger Bennett. I own a construction company. I do a lot of work for Paul. Paul owns several older houses, you know, throughout the Dayton area, et cetera, et cetera. When he first invited me down to look at this house, his intentions wasn't to tear this house down. Me and a couple guys went through the whole house and looked at it in depth, you know, to see if we could salvage the house and fix the house, because he doesn't really want to tear the house down. But after we got in and looked at the foundation and the floors and stuff, I mean, everything would have to come out of this house. New foundation would have to be put underneath the bottom of the house, not the side towards the alley, but the side, you know, the other side, because it's the old stone foundation, and it's all just sunk in and fell in. And I don't even think you could actually jack up the house to get the foundation underneath of it, to be honest with you. I mean, like I said, I do a lot of work for Paul. He saves, you know, he's got a lot of older homes. And tear this down, no, I don't really see a reason to if it's fixable. I mean, I can fix a lot of things, but this is just one I cannot fix. I mean, we would basically be tearing it down to rebuild it again, as it is. So instead of doing that, we'll tear this down and simulate what's there, going, you know, try to simulate and get approval, you know, to put it back sort of like it is. It's not going to be exact. We can't buy the same material. There's really nothing salvageable in the house. There's a lot of mold growing in the house due to the roof leaks, things like that. So mold's really, you can get rid of it, but you ain't going to get rid of it 100%. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on.
Well, he stole some of my thunder. When I bought the house, I didn't buy it with the express intent on tearing it down. I bought the house because it was available, and to an extent, I wanted to help the family. You know, it was in tax foreclosure, so if I hadn't jumped in when I did, who knows, it might still be in tax foreclosure, it'd be in limbo. It would only have continued to deteriorate more than it has during the past year. When you have a problem such as this, the first thing is to recognize that you have a problem. If you can't recognize that you have a problem, then I don't know where you go in your decision-making process. So if you have a problem, what do? One option is to do nothing. Another option is to try to deal with it. And then, you know, tearing it down, we've considered the different options. Can we rehab it? I couldn't see any point in rehabbing it exactly like it is. It would still sit on the street, and it would still be, you know, close to the alley. To me, the house needs to be moved back a little bit from the street and farther away from the alley. People don't want to live right on the street. If you have rental property, they would prefer to live back a ways, so there's a little less noise from the traffic particularly. The woman that lived there said it's impossible to keep it clean. Of course, the windows weren't really airtight, but dirt came in all the time. So with better windows, less dirt would come in, but you'd still have somewhat the same problem. So I will do my best. I pledge to do my very best to make what goes up there look as close as possible as you possibly can to what's there now. It won't look exactly like it, but it will have white wood. I want to keep the porch. What else can I say? Please give me a chance to do what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council? Sure.
Like the lady said, I like old homes too. I love them. I live in one. That's next to that one. We have done the inside of it, the whole house. And it's a chore, believe me. But in order to renovate this thing, the floors are falling in. You're afraid to even walk on the floor, afraid you're going to go through the hole or something. And I don't see anything you can salvage about this house but the doors. You might be able to do that. They would be old. You might be able to do that. That's the only thing I see. And if you don't live next door to that, you don't have to look at that every day and put up with that and then try to do something with your property. And then that property is nothing done to it. It's not pleasant, believe me. I like for my property to look nice. But I can't do it with that over there because that doesn't look nice. There's no way you're going to make it look nice. Because it is ruined. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Council, I guess, discussion. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
You know, I put a lot of value in Article 14, and Article 14 gives you some very difficult standards, what's going to happen going forward, and I think that's very important. I know the city spent a lot of time and effort developing Article 14. I think it's a very good controlling feature we have, and I think it'll be good to make sure that the property that comes in replacement is going to fit in the area as best we can. I also want to thank Mr. Gendron for paying the back taxes. There was over $12,000 taxes in arrears. This is money the city was not otherwise going to get, and this goes to the water, the sewer, et cetera, and so on. It's nice to get those things cleared and clarified, and I was glad that he came in and stepped in. He's already paid those, and so now he did that without even knowing what's going to happen with the property. I went to the property yesterday, and I stood on the front porch only for about 10 seconds because I saw the ceiling and I saw the floor. I thought I'd better get off. And I certainly would not ask any citizen to do anything I would not do, and I clearly would demolish that property. And I also put a lot of input and value on the relationship you've established with the next door neighbors, and I also value greatly their input. So I thank you for showing up tonight and giving us their input. That's all I have to say, but I would certainly support demolition.
Well, I was just going to mention, you know, I mean, I think everybody has an affinity for old homes, and Brady, I appreciate what you say, you know, once it's gone, but I think, you know, here you have to rely on some of the expertise that says it's not feasible, right? I don't disagree with that, but the reality is I don't see people standing in line wanting to buy this property to spend over $100,000 to rehab it to what it was, and it sounds like that's not even feasible maybe at any cost, right? Money aside, it's just not enough there to do, right? It's like trying to rebuild a Model T with having a wheel, right? You can't get there. So I'm all in favor of demolishing this house. My apology is to you, Mr. Gilry, and I might not have said your name right, but, Genrians, thank you. Had this moved quickly in July, we probably would have already had that down, and your new project would have been well underway and maybe even completed. But we are in November, and I understand, the weather's here, the winter's here, so it's probably going to have to be looking at that for another cycle here. But I hope we can put something together that in the spring is going to be workable. I appreciate your pledge, I truly do, for the Village Review Board to work with them to find a property that's going to fit your needs and your requirements, but also the needs of the city. So I do appreciate that.
Nick?
I can appreciate the desire to maintain the character of the old village. I mean, I really can. I've lived in Bellbrook 20 years, and part of the attraction and charm to our community is the old village.
Yeah.
But the way I look at this is, we have a problem property smack dab in the middle of our downtown business district. And, from an economic standpoint, we haven't had people step up to want to do anything to maintain it, to restore it, or do whatever. I think something has to be done. It could sit like this, for the next 10 years and just crumble itself into the ground, and then we have, an historical pile of rubbish. So from my standpoint, I support the demolition. I know that there's a process in place that when it is demolished and a new structure goes in, it'll be in accordance with all the regulations and rules, and it'll be architecturally as close as it can be. But I don't see any other option for this property. Maybe 10 years ago, if the property was, not as far gone, we could be having a different discussion, but I don't see any other options at this point.
Laura?
I looked at this property back last winter, I think it was. Me and my son, we fool around with old properties. I live in the old village. I live in one of the old homes. I own another that was turned into a duplex. Old structures, we've done a lot of work on. You never stop working on old houses, never. So this property, we looked at it, and the sole reason we looked at it was to rehab it, and we didn't have any interest in tearing it down, or if we didn't think we could rehab it, we didn't want it. So we looked at it, we made a determination that it was just too far gone. One of the things that I found kind of bad about the property is it kind of sits low compared to the streets. It's got a lot of water that lays in under it. That's from streets being built up over 160 years. That's just the way they do, or did back then. That was an issue. The structure itself, the beams and stuff had quite a bit of rot. There's just no feasible nor economic way to bring that back. I hate to see it go. Section 14 of the zoning code covers all the old village. If you read it, I mean, it's pretty specific about a lot of things, but it boils down to it's not economically feasible. And even if you did rehab it, you still have issues. There's still possible lead. I mean, all those things are still there. And like you brought up, the mold and the rot, you can't get rid of it. It's just too far gone. There's a tree growing out of the porch. I mean, but like I say, I really hate to see it go. But Mr. Gendron's, I understand where he's at, and I support tearing it down. Thanks.
I'm on the museum board, so I do have a great appreciation for history, and I love old homes. But not everything that was built 100 years ago, or 150 or 200 years ago needs to be saved. We live in the 21st century, and there are things that need to be updated while you pay respect to the integrity of the architecture and the scale and all of that, which can be done in new construction. We live a different life today. And I don't like to tear stuff down just to be rid of it, but to try to fix something that's as in terrible a shape as that is, that doesn't have any real historical value, historic, somebody famous living there or some famous event happening there. We can't save it all, but we can still maintain the integrity of our architecture and our ambiance, which is what the Old Village Review, what is it? VRB. Ordinance, I forget what it's called, ordinance, was put in place for. And I know the people who worked on this, my husband being one of them. They worked extremely hard to put in place something that was feasible for people to do and still maintain the architectural integrity of this village. So I have to be in favor of tearing it down. I just don't think it's possible to fix it. Lead paint and mold and dry rot and, I mean, you can't fix that stuff. It has to be replaced.
Mrs. Seeger-Lawson?
I just wanted to say that I appreciate everyone coming down and giving their comments, and you took time out of your day to come down and explain to us what your position is, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate all the folks that are on the Village Review Board that came down to talk to us about their experience and why they voted the way that they did. People that are on the Old Village Review Board do care about the downtown, and that's why they're on the downtown board. But at the same time, I agree with all the other comments that have been made today. If it doesn't make economic sense, we can't expect anyone to throw money into a house that isn't going to have a return on it. But Article 14 with the whole the look and feel of downtown, I mean, that's what it's supposed to be doing. That's what the Old Village is supposed to do when they evaluate the new structure that's going to be there. So we do expect that they are going to try to maintain the look and feel of the downtown when they do review that new property. So I would also vote to demolish it.
So I guess my opinion doesn't matter. I'll just say a few things really quick. One, when I looked at the numbers on how much you had said it was going to cost to make livable or rent, I probably would disagree a little bit on the numbers because I think it would cost more. I also think you probably would make a little more on rent when I was looking at those numbers. My concern is what would happen if you would not have purchased this property. And this is all these points are already going to be mentioned. Or if you decided, even economically, if it's not feasible to move forward with it, you probably aren't. I could put it up for sale and it'll probably sit there for an indefinite amount of time and nothing would ever happen to it. The historic value of it, I don't know. I'm sure it'd be sort of neat when they're tearing it down if they could, if it's got timbers in or something like that to look at. But everyone has pretty much covered all the points I would have. I mean, the house itself is so close to the sidewalk in front too, which there's other houses like that. But it would just, I can't believe the amount of money that you had gotten, or the estimates. I think it would cost more, just my unsubstantiated opinion, because it would be a lot of work. So I guess I'm also in favor of demolition. What do we need to do, Mark?
Somebody can make a motion.
Okay.
Of those things, if you want to.
Who would like to make a motion? You want me to make it up for you?
Sure.
May I have a motion to approve the Old Village, or approve the demolition of 79 West Franklin Street? We have a BZA or a case?
Yeah, 15-02.
15-02.
So moved, Mayor.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Motion made by Mr. Martin to approve the demolition of 79 West Franklin Street, Village Review Board Case 15-02. Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger-Lawson.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mr. Schweller.
Yes.
Mayor Baird.
Yes. Moving on. Mark, you have anything else on that topic?
No.
Moving on, open discussion, council. Nick?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Forrest?
I just appreciate the fire department and the police department giving out awards. That's great. Got good people. I like to see them.
Yep,
Good
absolutely. Mr. Martin?
I I had the letter in my briefcase, I forgot to bring it, but I wanted to mention, a letter went out, you probably would have received one Friday, Saturday timeframe. If you are a property owner that the pipeline cuts through Bellbrook, if you're a property owner that adjoins your property or crosses your property, as it does mine, you should have received a letter. They're going to be doing maintenance and mowing. They've probably been on your property. You may have a lot of pink and yellow flags out in your yard. I met with them this afternoon. They're going to be doing work over the next 2 to 3 weeks throughout the city, across that right-of-way. And again, I did not bring it tonight, but if you did not get a letter and you have questions, the letter gave me the person's name and their telephone number, and I will put it down here at the Bellbrook office. If you just want to call the administration here, they'll have that contact information. I spoke to Jeff this afternoon. He said that would be great. He'd be happy to talk with anybody that has any questions or concerns about what they're going to be doing, and I'll make sure that the office down here has that name and number. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Milster?
I don't have anything to say tonight.
I just want to say thank you to all the folks that received the service awards. I appreciate the good work that they do and caring for our citizens and our city.
Mr. Weller?
I have nothing to say tonight other than what's already been said, so.
I would also just like to once again thank our employees and congratulate them on their anniversary. So 10th being the lowest is always a good thing. And I also like to thank everyone for getting up and giving their opinions. We really do listen. And we also just don't come in here. We've done the research. We have Eileen Mittemeyer doing a lot of work for us too. So thank you for coming tonight too. Moving on, this is open discussion for the audience. So once again, you can come up and you have 5 minutes and the same address and all those kinds of things. I don't see anyone jumping up. Does any member on council have any other business to come for us this evening?
Mayor.
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.